Hi guys, I hope you are well. If you find the video useful, please do click like, please do subscribe, please do remember that I have a Kofi account underneath, and I do legitimately spend the money you give me for coffee on coffee. So this is a follow-up to the and the dirt videos that were done. So Joe Cipriano writes, Luke, thanks for your explanation on this matter. Based on your explanation of choosing de or a before an infinitive, can you explain the choice of de in these two sentences? Chacun est libre de choisir. Elle est capable de manger. Both of these sentences don't have an object after the infinitive, but still use de. All right? Do certain expressions just default to de? So this is based on the fact that in the previous video, there's a group of really sweet and very nicely behaved Ugandan kids in the lobby of the hotel, and they're all wearing like matching orange t-shirts so that you don't lose any of them. I might do that with my students in Besançon. I might, even though they're all kind of like much older, I might make them all wear the same t-shirt. Yeah, but they're quite noisy. So anyway, yes, Joe is referring to the fact that in the previous video, one of the usages, one of the descriptions between de and a that I spoke about is if you had a neutral and impersonal expression like it is useful. No, it is easy. No, that gives complications. It's difficult to find a teacher. I always use the same example. A good teacher is difficult to find. And I was saying that if the verb in question here had an object, had a complement after it, that it would tend to have a de before the infinitive. And if it ended with infinitive, it would tend to have an a before it. But as I did say, and I did stress, Joe, that is in the neutral impersonal style expressions mainly. Like, it's interesting to do it, it's interesting to do. You know, il est intéressant de le faire, you know, c'est intéressant à faire kind of thing. So Joe then was like, well, Luke, if I've got chacun est libre de choisir, it's not like chacun est libre de choisir and then an object. So why is it using de? Elle est capable de manger. Why is it using de? Because the manger and the choisir don't have an object, because they're not impersonal sentences. What I said was that rule generally worked with impersonals. Like, it's great, it's easy to find a teacher is easy to find. The expressions here are based, your de is coming after an adjective when somebody is doing the adjective. So the common rule, as I said before with that, the go down, the bounce down, please fuck off and go to bed. What time is it? It's 9:15. I know they're on holiday, but fucking hell. Go to bed. Yeah, so because it's a person, and emotional adjectives will very commonly be followed by the de. So I'm happy to come. Moi, je suis content de venir. Again, Joe, there's no compliment, like I'm happy to come the book or something, you know. Oh dear. I'm happy to speak. Ouais, je suis content de parler. We don't need, oh, je suis content de parler la langue, or je suis content à parler, or something like this, because most adjectives will then go to this de if they're adjectives of feeling, and really, to be honest with you, that will cover you for most bases in what you feel. If I am something to do something, please shut the fuck up. It's a public place. They're really, 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 really loud. That's the teachers. The kids are gorgeous. The kids are at the bar. Really nice. Please, may I have a glass of orange juice? Super, 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 super polite. Really, really nice. It's the teachers that are on a free jolly. Honest to God, these teachers are motherfuckers. The teachers on a free jolly, sitting in the lobby of the hotel, really, really loudly drinking wine. Yeah, so let's look at a couple of websites that have kind of badly explained this, and let's see if we can kind of get anywhere else. Another thing I'd like you to very much be aware of is that certain verbs and certain adjectives that come from these verbs can have different outcomes. Oh my God, must you scream? Do I have any water I can throw over the top of the balcony? Shall we throw some water over? So for example, I'm obliged to speak more loudly because they're noisy. Je suis obligé de, okay? But if you used obligé as a verb, like he obliges me to speak, that one, for example, would be obligé, il m'oblige à parler, because you're using obligé there as a verb. So, for example, if you said, if he obliged me to speak, il m'a obligé à, because it's on the use of the verb, that you'd have obligé à versus I was obliged to speak, alors j'étais obligé de, whatever. So be careful with that. So let's go to, let's do some, so I basically typed in so I always try and look up other websites to see what you guys will see when you look things up. So I typed in de or à after an adjective in French and to see what would come up. And the first thing is from Grammar and Collins Dictionary, which is really meant to be decent. And they have written, so I don't want to speak ill of anybody, but if you typed à de Grammar Collins Dictionary, so it says, just like verbs, some French adjectives can be linked to what follows by the French prepositions à or de. An adjective followed by de or à can be followed by a noun, a pronoun, or an infinitive. Yeah? Some adjectives that can be followed by de are used to say how you feel. You know, that you're certain about something or that it's necessary or important to do something. And these are the most common ones. So, je suis certain de, je suis content de, je suis désolé de, je suis enchanté de, je suis heureux de, you know, important de, malheureux de, nécessaire de, sûr de, je suis sûr de venir, for example, je suis triste de. Okay? And then the example that it's given, so you're sure you can come, you are sure about being able to come, tu es sûr de pouvoir venir, delighted to meet you, enchanté de faire votre connaissance, not you, you're noisy, but the kids are nice. Il est nécessaire de réserver, you need to book, all right? And then it says underneath, note that some French adjectives such as facile, meaning easy, intéressant, meaning interesting, or impossible, do yourself a favor. When you learn to spell intéressant, notice that it's got the E acute, can be followed either by à or de. And then it says de tends to be used when you are saying something that's generally true. À tends to be used when you're saying something specific about something or someone in particular. So, and then the examples that they've given, il est difficile de prendre une décision. And then they've said, il est difficile à connaître. So it's difficult to take a decision. It's difficult, he's difficult to know. He's difficult to get to know. Son accent est difficile à comprendre. His accent is difficult to understand. But that's not about whether you're saying something general or whether you're saying something, you know, specific about a person. That just completely falls into what we've just said. It's difficult to take a decision. Il est difficile, it's a neutral expression, Joe. Il est difficile de prendre une décision. It's difficult. Take a decision. There's a complement, there's an object after the prendre. So, il est difficile de prendre une décision. Il est difficile à connaître, although it looks identical, il est difficile is he is difficult to know. So that is actually following what I said. So that's one thing where I'm like, yeah, to be honest with you, it's this neutrality, it's this, when it's like an impersonal statement that you've got to worry about this de and à. Most adjectives that you're going to need to say, like Luke is happy to speak, whether it's Luke is happy to speak or Luke is happy to speak the language, you know, Luc est content de parler, Luc est content de parler la langue. It doesn't make any difference with the de there, whether you've got an object or a complement or not, Joe. It's because it's an adjective after a person, and that's why it's going to tend to be the de on this occasion, as a general rule of thumb. If I went to, let's go to another one. So if I went back, I might pop that link underneath, but it's got a little bit weird in its selection process. It's sometimes weird, sometimes takes out videos if you've got references to other things. But that, if you were to go to, if you just type into Google de or à after an adjective in French, or de or à on grammar.collinsdictionary.com, and that way I won't put the link in. Okay. Then we've got another one. Which French prepositions can come after adjectives? Now we've done that as well, the same one. There's another one that was quite a good one. Yeah, so grammar, when to use at and de. So this was on FrenchStackExchange.com. So somebody said, I find the following sentences. Il est impossible de penser à cela. Difficile à dire. C'est difficile de choisir. Ces choses sont impossibles à comprendre. Okay? These sentences are not coherent on the preposition of the adjectives, namely at and de, but I don't understand. So let's just look at those. So, il est impossible de penser à cela, because it is impossible to think about that. Il est impossible de penser, because you've got the neutral, il est impossible. Then it's the neutrality there, and then you've got il est impossible de penser, and then the pensée is going to carry on into something else. Difficile à dire. Whatever they're referring to, something has to be difficult to say. So the idea is that you are referring to a specific thing there. Yeah, it's difficult to say. So even though your sentence, Joe, might say it's difficult to say, il est difficile, or c'est difficile, you know, which totally resembles a neutral sentence, let's just look at the difference. You know, la langue française. No, let's say le français, so French, we're using a masculine, le français. If you said it's difficult to pronounce or something, ouais, il est difficile à prononcer, the il est difficile there totally feels like a neutral, it's difficult. But one would be neutral, the idea being it's at the start of an expression. It's difficult to speak in French, like generally it's difficult. Il est difficile de parler en français, and the other one would be it's difficult to say, il est difficile à dire, or c'est difficile à dire, whatever. Going back to this idea that you are referring to a previous idea, or that we know whether or not there's an object kind of attached to it. C'est difficile de choisir, okay, here might confuse you. Because you might go, okay, Luke, c'est difficile de choisir. Why haven't we got difficile à choisir? Because we haven't got a complement after the choisir. C'est difficile de choisir. And this comes down to whether you are basically saying this thing, it's difficult to choose. Yeah, it's difficult to choose. A very good first husband. I always say this when people get married. I always send a card saying, "Well done, he's an excellent first husband," and they never quite get the joke. So if I said, "Yeah, a first husband is difficult to choose," il est facile à choisir, or c'est facile, c'est facile, or c'est difficile à choisir. It's because we're on about this idea of this first husband. In other words, we know, Joe, what this object is, even if we're not mentioning said object, okay? If you say, c'est difficile de choisir, it basically means, in general, the process, it's difficult to choose. If you said the right subject to study at college, it's difficult to choose. So even though we haven't got this object after it, Joe, we're kind of referring to the object. We know that there's an object there, and that will often play a role as well. So like, non, c'est difficile à choisir. Like, les bonnes matières, the right subjects, yeah, ce sont difficiles à choisir. Or the right subject, la bonne matière, c'est difficile à choisir. If you say, you're just generally talking and people go, yeah, not sure what I'm going to do with my life, and you go, yeah, it's difficult to choose, that would be much more likely to be c'est difficile de choisir, because you're not referring to a specific noun that you are choosing. It's just generally the open idea of it's difficult to choose. All right, These things are difficult, impossible to understand. Ces choses sont impossibles à comprendre. Ces choses sont impossibles à comprendre. In this expression, these things are impossible to understand. We've got these things. We've got these things. So we're referring to that. So ces choses sont impossibles à comprendre. So going back to, that's just a couple of examples with these kind of things come up. Anything else that's, so if you've got the examples that we're talking about there, yeah, so if you've got the examples that we're talking about there that you've specifically given me, there's no neutrality. Yeah, there's no neutrality to them. There's no like, it is generally difficult. The example you've got is everybody is free to choose. She is capable of choosing. And if you said libre à choisir kind of thing, notice that when you, oh my God, one of them's got a freaking recorder. If you said chacun est libre, notice when you say facile à acheter or whatever, the thing that you're on about is this thing is easy for somebody else to buy. Whereas if you said ouais, c'est très facile d'acheter ou de l'acheter ou d'en acheter using a de, it would mean it's very easy to buy it, but also this idea that this thing isn't being bought. So if you say c'est facile, it's easy to read. C'est facile de lire. Yeah, meaning the action of reading is quite easy. C'est facile à lire would be this thing in question that we're on about is easy to read because it's well written in, you know, block capitals. So I hope that gets you a little bit closer. So in other words, Joe, if you're not in the realm of a neutral, you're not in the realm of so in the examples that we've gotten there, everybody is free to choose. It's not like they themselves are free for somebody else to choose. Yeah, because if you think about it as well, if you use this à business, so if you said a good French teacher is hard to find, alors un bon professeur de français est difficile à trouver, the French teacher is being found by somebody else. In the chacun est libre de choisir, the chacun is not being chosen by anybody else. The chacun is doing the choosing. Yeah? Elle est capable de manger. She is capable of eating something else. It's not like she's capable of being eaten by somebody else. So I hope this makes a little bit more sense, Joe. And I hope you can understand with all the fucking cacophony of background noise that's going on here. Good.